it's really concerning because you have a large population in Syria that's vulnerable to this, and in both the northwest and the northeast and in other parts of the country, you have millions of people, about 7 million people who are displaced. Many of them live in camps where there's unsanitary conditions, where there's no safe drinking water, where there's no way to quarantine or be separate from others if you have the disease or if you think someone has it, and where there's just very limited health services and inefficient or non-existent administration. And the health sector is in tatters basically across Syria, especially in the northwest and the northeast, but really across Syria. And this has been the result of, again, both deliberate attacks, bombings of hospitals, shelling of hospitals, killing of medical personnel. And we've seen this mostly by the Syrian government and its Russian ally. But there's also the sort of the general downturn of the economy. Salaries aren't worth anything. Doctors emigrate or flee the country for political reasons. Freshly baked students leave the country immediately after graduating because you can't get by in Syria. They need to find better paying jobs so they can support their families basically abroad. I mean, the water infrastructure is key to this, since cholera spreads via diseased water and food, contaminated water and food. So in Syria, we've, according to some calculations, we've seen a 40% drop in the availability of drinkable water since the conflict began in 2011. And that has to do with many things. There has been deliberate attacks and sabotage and destruction of pumping stations and water treatment plants in some areas. But even more, I think, the general decline of the economy and of infrastructure with failure of upkeep and maintenance and brain drain and inaccessibility of many of these places, because you have systems that are, before the war, it was all connected across the country, but now you have different actors in different areas and they don't get along. And sometimes they can make deals so that a team of repairmen or administrators or whatever it might be can go from one area to the other and fix things, but that doesn't always work. Well, Turkey is one of the major actors sort of pulling at each other and wrestling over control over these areas in northern Syria, along with the Assad government, which is backed by Russia and Iran, and then you have the Kurdish-led forces in the northeast that are backed by the United States. And although Turkey facilitates both water provision and aid and UN access to the northwest, where they are dominant, that's not the case for the northeast, along the other section of the Turkish border, where you have Kurdish forces in charge. That's in that area, Turkey helps block the aid provision. And since 2019, when Turkish forces grabbed 2 cities along the border in an offensive against the Kurdish forces, they also came into control of a water plant in that area, Aluk, the Aluk station. And that has since then been shut off repeatedly, many times, as part of the sort of negotiations or pressure tactics, or as part of the conflict, war by other means in that region. And that has restricted the access to safe water for a lot of people in northeastern Syria.